University has a long history of drag. In 1894, the operetta Joan of Arc, or The Monarch, the Maid, the Minister, and the Magician, had an all-male cast, including a 6'3" Joan of Arc. The yearly musical The Varsity Show continued the all-male tradition until 1955, with a brief gap in the 1930s. More on that later. The highlight of the show was the Pony Ballet, a huge chorus number featuring men in drag. At first, the dancers in the audience took the Pony Ballet seriously. The Columbia Daily Spectator review of the 1908 show Mr. King raves. The sly digs and knocks at the powers that be, and above all, the indescribable grace of the chorus girl combined to make it an event of the kind that we all like to remember. Well, one of the stars, Bob Schneitzer, explained the seriousness by claiming, "We weren't camp at all." Unlike our modern stereotypes about musical theater, the early Varsity Show did not have a particularly gay reputation, which isn't to say there were no gay people writing or starring in varsity shows before the 1930s. The gay lyricist, who would go on to write songs like My Funny Valentine, Manhattan, and The Lady is a Tramp, played Mary Pickford in the 1916 musical The Peace Pirates. According to Oscar Hammerstein, he skipped and bounced around the stage like an electrified gnome. The great songwriting duos Rodgers and Hart and Rodgers and Hammerstein met at Columbia. Rodgers, Hammerstein, and Hart wrote their only musical together in the 1920s. Perhaps the campiest varsity show was Flair Flair, The Idol of Paris, in 1935. Flair Flair was written by the flamboyant lyricist John Latouche, who later wrote Broadway hits like The Golden Apple and Cabin in the Sky and contributed songs to Candide. Latouche supposedly filled the cast of Flair Flair with flamboyantly gay men like himself. Advertisements in The Spectator claimed the show was set in gay Paris of the turn of the century. Gay had already begun to have its modern meaning by the 1930s, although not all of the people reading The Spectator would be aware of the connotations. Flair Flair shocked the administration so much with its Rabelaisian humor that they created a censorship board for student productions. The scandal caused John Latouche to leave Columbia after only 2 years. After Flair Flair, the stars of the Pony Ballet were big, horsey, ugly guys. The Pony Ballet stopped being about grace and elegance and turned into a comedy. The dancers would rehearse seriously, but they inevitably got drunk during every show. Not only did the Pony Ballet change, but the show included women for the first time. The inclusion of women could be seen as a homophobic response to Flair Flair, a feminist move, or an attempt to sex up the varsity show. But the timing does not sound like a coincidence. Whatever the reasoning, the response to the women was aggressively heterosexual and misogynist. 2 Columbia Daily Spectator articles described Columbia boys who attempted elaborate schemes to watch the actresses rehearsing in their underwear. None but the chosen few see showgirls dance in scanties, and Showgirls versus Ponies. Who wins? When the girls appears on stage, there was a mixture of cheers and boos. After their first dance number, the boys yelled, "We want the girls!" so loudly and for so long that the show couldn't go on until the women performed an encore. The next year, Columbia decided to conduct a student poll to decide whether girls should be allowed to play feminine roles. The students voted yes, but they treated the women in the 1937 show, Some of the People, even worse than the last year. According to the New York Sun, bananas and pennies, hardly from heaven, pelted the stage as the girls appeared. Women didn't participate in the Varsity Show again until 1956. The tradition of the Pony Ballet disappeared and was revived again several times, including several shows in the early 2000s.